Hey everybody, Riot Mort back, and we are here for the patch 13.8 post-mortem, where we go over the changes that happened last patch and talk about what worked and what didn't and how we got here. And yeah, so today I am joined by Solo. Solo, how are you doing? It's been a while.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. Happy to be here. Hello to you guys.
Nice. You and I haven't seen each other since the All-Star game all the way back in 2019, so
Yeah, it's 4 years, right?
yeah, pretty
4 years,
crazy.
3 years, not sure. Very long time.
Yeah, so cool. All right, so it seems like we shipped the 13.8 patch, and I think pretty clearly we've seen it kind of be, Kaisa and Misfortune have been pretty dominant.
Yeah.
There's been some gadgetine builds, whether you go like the Sona build and things like that. So definitely not the perfect meta, but there has been a lot of like everything below the S tier. There's actually been a lot of variety. Does that kind of match up your experience?
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, I think the patch is pretty good. Besides Kaiser, like there are like 3 or 4 Kaiser players every game, and all of them get to top 6.
Yep.
Um, Yasuo carry is a bit too overtuned as well. As as soon as you get everything 3-star, you pretty win automatically. There's no way you lose.
Yep.
And maybe the 5 gadgetine stuff, like if you can get +1 gadgetine, then the game's over. It's
Yeah,
like
it's pretty
nothing you
good.
can do. Like, these 3 things are a bit overtuned, but the rest is pretty balanced. I like to play with patch.
Cool. Cool. All right. Well, let's go over the individual changes and we can talk about which changes worked. So the first one obviously was a pretty big one for this patch, which was the hacker change. This was us making sure that, hacker went down in power a lot. We really nerfed 3 hacker, 4 hacker kind of nerfed as well as, and 5 a little. I think this change worked out really well. We're not seeing hacker all over the place, which I think is really important. But it's still playable. Like, I think we still saw some hacker lines. You could maybe argue it was supposed to be like 15% instead of 10 or something, but overall, I'm pretty happy we made this change.
Yeah, also like this change, like I think LeBlanc got the worst of it, most certainly. She's still playable sometimes if you get the best admins like, every 5 seconds AP and mana. But otherwise, like you definitely can't force her. Gnar Hacker, I don't think it changed too much for Gnar Hacker. I've also played the Chinese version with Sona Gnar, also without statics on Morgana. You don't really need it.
Hmm.
But I've played both. I've seen both. I'm pretty sure the Sona Morgana variant is better. But you can still play the Hacker version. And Draven Hacker is pretty bad. I think. I don't think he can do too well unless you hit everything perfectly. So like maybe once in 10 games.
Makes
But
sense.
yeah, I think yeah. But the Hacker nerf was needed. Definitely.
Yeah, it still feels like if you get like a hacker heart or hacker emblem out of a tome or something, that's when you can maybe go that line, which is kind of good, right? We don't really want to see hacker LeBlanc in every game. So again, overall, I think it was needed. Cool. Heart, we buffed Heart 6 a little. Cool. I think that helped a little bit. It's still not Heart dominating. I think they still struggle because Viego's pretty weak. But overall, to see Heart kind of playable is good.
Yeah, I've seen quite a few Sona carries, but they don't usually play 6 hard, maybe like 4 and then other stuff. But
Yep.
I've seen quite a few 6 hard Lee Sin players with a cleansing safeguard. If you
Ooh.
get it on stage 2-1 and have some spare tank items, that's important. Like you need to get the free tank items instantly.
Yep.
And you can usually like just rush level 8, maybe level 9, stack up, like put in all the legendaries, and then you can win. As I've definitely seen, only seen it a few times, but the few times I've seen it, it performed really well. But yeah, you need a specific spot for it.
Cool.
Yeah, but yeah, so the 6 hard buff was fine. Like help Lee Sin out a bit. I've seen the stats for Lee Sin carry. It's pretty bad, but
Yep.
if you have a good spot, yeah, I mean, if you have tank items and the Lee Sin carry augment, it's fine. If you don't, then it's probably an eighth.
Makes sense. Infiniteam. So this is where we nerfed 5 a little bit and 7 a decent chunk. I think this change landed perfectly. I think 7 Infiniteam is still very good. You get the emblem, you put it on Garen, you put it on Fiddlesticks. I think it's still a very good comp. And so
Mm.
overall, I think Infiniteam is exactly where it should be now.
I think it's okay. I feel like you need a really good start with +1 Infinity Team or like Pantheon 2, Last Whisper Silver. I feel like you drop way too low in HP, and the Kaiser players just beat you out early on.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the requirement for this is like a win streak start. Otherwise, it's okay. If you can get it to the late game, it's still very strong and can definitely get first. But I've seen like quite a few players if they can't manage to win streak early, they just drop off so fast, and if they get a bad fight against the Kaiser 3 pass or so, they just get kicked out.
Yep.
Even with a strong bot, I think you need yeah, some kind of a good open of it.
Makes
I don't
sense.
think you can hard force it.
Makes sense. All right. The Oxforce rework. So this was obviously, I think, a long time coming for a lot of players. Oxforce no longer go immune, but instead get a big shield for 1.5 seconds. My read on this is this was a success. Oxforce is definitely a little less powerful, but they're still playable. I think one of the A tier comps right now is still the Twisted Fate Oxforce comp. There's still good ways to play it. And now it doesn't, a Fiora 1 doesn't block an entire Misfortune ult, which is nice. So overall, I'm calling this rework a success.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I also think that the Twisted Fate comp for Oxforce for Spellslinger version is pretty close to Kaiser. If the Kaiser is contested, and the Twisted Fate player can get a spot to level 2, and other Kaiser players only have Kaiser 2, then he can definitely match them and even win against them. Especially if you get the Jenna Windy version, or if you can get like to level 9 and put in Syndra and put all your legendaries on the bench, and you can definitely cap out really well and beat them. So usually I default to Kaiser, but if you see that it's too contested, you have some the hero augments probably in stage 4, then you can definitely just pivot to Twisted Fate and get a first easily. So
Makes sense.
So it's I really like Oxforce change. I think it's like sometimes it's stronger early mid game,
Yep.
but late game it's definitely weaker, but still playable. It's not like much worse. It's just okay. Like
Yeah,
that's how it's supposed to be. I think.
yeah, it deals with the extreme cases, right? Like like you said, it's a little stronger in some cases, but now it doesn't block like an entire MF3 ult, so it doesn't deal with those extremes. So yeah. All right, Underground Tome of Traits will no longer drop from Heist 4 or higher. This was just a nice quality of life change I think a lot of people were asking for. It lowers the difficulty of some of these Underground heists because people get pretty dizzy when they try to do their cash out and stay alive. So I'll call this a win.
What do you get instead of Tome of Traits in the Heist 4? Like, did you just remove this outcome? And
Yeah, we just removed that outcome and spread it to all the other outcomes.
Okay.
So
I see. Okay.
Yep.
Makes sense.
Yeah, easy change. So cool. All right, on to the champions. Blitzcrank. Blitzcrank is no longer an insane tank. I think he's still a good tank, but now he's not quite, blocking everything. I think this change was pretty close to right. There's a world where maybe it was supposed to be even more. Maybe this number was supposed to be like 45, 50, 52 or something. But overall, it feels like Blitzcrank is pretty close now and not quite this like insane tank that gets you to fast 9 by himself. So I think these numbers were correct.
Yeah, I agree. Like, I think he's still really strong in laser core comp. In Warwick comp. I think you should prefer stacking him over like stuff like Renekton or Riven, because he still does a lot of early game, especially you get him to level 2 early, and if you can stack your Warwick and your Blitzcrank and get like 5-6 lasers, then you can also get this Blitzcrank aircraft carrier in the late game. Because usually if you fully stack him, Warmox, Dranclo, Bramble, and so on, he usually survives as the last unit,
and then does a ton of damage. Yeah,
Strain Dawns. Yeah, it still works. It's definitely worse, but it still works. Yeah, it was a good change.
Cool. Gangplank. So to me, this change was directionally correct. Gangplank needed a buff, and I'm glad he got it. I still think Gangplank is too weak, though. I don't think it was enough. And so I kind of wish I'd gone a little higher here, because Gangplank is still I think, like, you get a 2-star Gangplank early, you're still kind of like, I guess. So to me, he's still a little too weak.
Yeah, I don't feel any difference either.
Yeah.
She's just a filler unit for the synergies.
Yep, makes sense. Okay, Lucian. This was a big nerf because Lucian was extremely strong in the previous patch. And so far, I think we're pretty happy with this. I think Lucian is now what he's supposed to be. He's a 1-cost. He does some damage in the early game. His traits can get up there. You can play 3-star Lucian, but it's not quite the free win that it was before. And so overall, I think these numbers ended up exactly where they're supposed to be.
Yeah, I think you can play him as a item holder. He's okay for Kaiser for Kaiser, but I don't think you can play him as a carry anymore. I don't think you can play him as a carry anymore. Just
So-
as an item holder, it's okay.
So do you think this was an over nerf?
I think it was an over nerf. Yeah.
Okay.
I
Okay.
I try to check out every server and I rarely see him. And the times I saw him, if I don't completely high roll everything, then it's pretty fast bot for. I think I've seen him once today. Like this guy had double trouble, I think, or something. Like he hit loop free, bit free, everything level 3 instantly, and he still got like third place because some Kaiser player outplaced him. But
Yeah. Okay. So an over nerf.
I think, as an item holder, he's okay. I still like to play him early on. Like if I get double Lucian, I keep them, put in Ezreal, some defenders in, and then just play him as a Kaiser item holder.
Yep.
But I don't think he can perform as a carry anymore.
Yep. That makes sense. Lux, we did a damage buff here. I think this didn't really move the needle much. I think Lux still really struggles as a carry. I think she's still an okay item holder, but that didn't change much here. So overall, I don't know. I feel like this change didn't need to happen, or it needed to be bigger.
Yeah, I don't think it changed too much. I've seen a few more Lux carry players. They seem to do okay. It was okay for top 4, but that's it. Like,
Yep.
don't think they can get more than a 4th place.
Yep.
With a carry augment anymore.
Nasus. So Nasus was a really big buff here. He got some HP, he got some armor and MR, and his spell got to hit harder. I think this was a great change. I think Nasus now is actually a champion that like can be a good item holder in stage 2. I think it helps Anima in the early game a bit without making them overpowered. I think this was a really good change and a long time coming, and so pretty happy with this.
I think the change was good, but I don't feel a difference, to be honest, whenever I see Nasus or play Nasus myself.
Hmm.
Yeah. But the buff was needed, but not sure if the buff was enough.
Gotcha.
From the clips I saw, I don't think I would have noticed the buff too much.
Fair enough.
Maybe it's usually I don't see a stacked Nasus.
Yeah, well, like I said,
that's
I don't
why.
think the intention was to make him like a big carry. It was more like if you have a 2-star Nasus on 2-1, you feel a lot better about it. Was more the intention to help an Anima, like a 3 Anima and 2-1, 2-2, actually be able to win a few fights. And I think it's doing that.
Okay, I will pay attention next time someone levels up in Nasus.
Fair
See if
enough.
he,
Fair enough.
does some damage.
All right, Jinx. Jinx was another one that, again, I think these buffs kind of helped Anima. The Jinx plus Nasus helped a bit. I still don't think Jinx is S tier by any means. I think she still struggles, obviously, with some of the S tier comps. But overall, I was pretty happy with this change. And now you get let's say you get a lucky Jinx 2 in stage 2. It's good. So.
Yeah, I feel like Jinx was good. She also performs like in lower elos better. But I think starting a challenger, not sure why, but she gets outperformed really badly by all the other comps. She doesn't hold up in challenger, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I
Even
think
with her
late
carry
game
outline.
she struggles because she's got utility built into her kit, so she can't quite output the damage as some of our pure DPS champions.
And if I spread out, then she only ultimates
Right.
1 unit per ultimate, so it takes way too long.
Yep.
And I guess she also gets countered by these rail carry augments and
yeah.
other tanky augments, so she can never deal with this. Yeah.
Yeah, because she's front to
was
back.
good change. Yeah, yeah, that was a good change. Yeah,
Yep.
I liked it. I think it's early mid game is definitely can definitely notice the change.
Cool.
Late game is tough to go
Yeah,
against
I
all
mean,
these hyper tanks.
She's a 2 cost, so that kind of makes sense. Okay, Gnar. So this change, I'm glad we made the Gnar change. I am. But I will say I was on the fence about Gadgettine. I had wanted to bring Gadgettine 5 down from 10% to 9%, and I ended up not doing that, and I wish I had. I think Gnar, this wasn't enough, and I wish I had coupled it with the Gadgettine 5 nerf as well. So to me, that's kind of the mistake. Gnar is definitely one of the really good comps right now. even with this 5 AD nerf. But yeah, 5 Gadgettine is the thing I feel like we missed on.
Yeah, 5 Gadgettine is definitely way too strong. As soon as you get +1 Gadgettine, even without the emblem, it's way too strong. But I feel like 3 Gadgettine is too weak.
Yep.
Like even if you get everything 2-star, 3 Gadgettine doesn't do much.
Yep. I agree.
Probably needs like a 5 Gadgettine nerf and 3 Gadgettine buff, and the rest can probably stay like this right now. I think it's okay.
Sounds good. Okay, Kaisa. So the good news here is we had nerfed her. Thank God we did nerf her. If we hadn't nerfed her, that would have been very bad. But clearly we didn't nerf her enough. I think the big thing here is that if you look at a lot of Kaisa's success, it's built around Static Shiv, especially. And I think Kaisa's spell gives her 75% attack speed. I wish I had hit that number as well. That number in particular allows her to stack very quickly. With Star Guardian, you end up in some pretty obscene attack speed, even if you build all defensive items, right? You run like Shiv plus Gunblade plus one more, and she still pumps out insane amounts of damage, especially if you get the carry augment. So I think the miss here was not hitting the attack speed portion of her spell. But again, glad we nerfed her. It just wasn't enough.
Yeah, I agree with you. Static's already like one of the best early game items, and Kaiser just takes it to another level.
Yep.
So that's why 3 or 4 people can play her. If you get a level 2 Statics, and you're already stable for stage 2, 3, 4, 5 even. Yeah, I completely agree. I should definitely nerf some of her attack speed, so Statics is worse.
Yep. Rammus. This was a nice buff, small little extra attack speed. I think this buff was good. We see people actually being willing to play Rammus a little bit more now. It didn't change a ton, but it made Rammus a good threat. That's what he's supposed to be, so I'm okay with this change.
Yeah, I like the change. If you roll down in stage 3 and 4 and hit Rammus 2 and you're still missing a slot, you can just fit him in. Just okay. It's an okay tank. If you play against some clumped up enemies or some meaties, then he can definitely do some work, like 1 or 2 ultimates.
Yep.
Yeah, it was a good change.
Cool. Shen. So this change was kind of done to hit Infiniteam as well as some of the high damage reduction we've seen before. But I will say, I think this patch note was completely unnecessary. I don't think it changed much. A tiny buff to Shen 1, a tiny nerf to Shen 2, and a little bit less DR. But he's a 3 cost. He's supposed to be pretty good. So I look at this patch note and I kind of wish we hadn't done it. It just didn't do anything.
Yeah, I agree with it. It didn't do anything. It's probably because Hacker got nerfed.
Yeah.
A lot, so you don't see too many Hacker comps anymore. Because Chen was only good if you played Hacker yourself, so your Hacker carry got protected, or if you played against Hacker, then your carry got protected.
Yep.
Because nowadays, like maybe you see sometimes you see a Hacker Gnar, that's it. So this is why this change didn't do too much. Like, there's no one to protect.
Yep, exactly. Right. Bel'Veth. I think this was a nice buff. Bel'Veth needed a little bit of a buff. Honestly, we could probably give Bel'Veth a little bit more, but at least he's playable now. At least we're seeing some Bel'Veth comps have some success. So, a good change.
Yeah, I also really like the change. She's a monster early mid game, but late game she falls off really hard. So usually I would prefer playing Asol as the main carry, and then just put Bel'Veth in as a second carry in the mecha threat comp.
That makes sense.
But you can definitely do the work. If you get her early, like stage 3, then she can solo carry the stage.
Makes sense. Okay, on to hero augments. So Lucian, I think this change is actually the thing that hit Lucian carry really hard. Like this augment in particular on Lucian was really good. I also think it was a nerf that needed to happen, so I'm glad we did it. But I think this was actually one of the biggest nerfs. But man, could you imagine if we hadn't done this nerf with Kaisa? I think this would have made Kaisa even better. So pretty glad we did this change.
Like right now, you play a lot of like 6 Dargen Kaiser, so you don't really put in like 3 or 4 quick draws.
Yep.
So I think this was over nerf most certainly.
Okay.
But even if it was nerf, not sure if you would play too much with Kaiser. Would probably be okay, because the 6 Dargen variant is so strong right now.
Yeah.
So much mana, and even the Dargen units themselves are really strong. Like I think Nico's really underrated. Like if you get it to level 2, and we have some clumped up units, and she does tons of damage. Like
Yeah,
if you look at the
I would
damage
agree with
charts
that.
every time. So,
I think
so
Nico is underrated for sure.
yeah. This got overnerfed. Not sure if you would play it with Kaiser. I mean, because usually you would swap Lucian out for Misfortune, right? Maybe I guess if you don't get Misfortune early, you could play this like till stage 4 or 5 and then swap him out maybe for MF.
Yep.
If this wasn't overnerfed this much, yeah.
Cool. Pantheon, both of his augments got nerfed a bit. I think these were both good changes. I think both Pantheon augments are still quite good. So I'm happy with both of these changes.
Yeah, the best offense, I've still seen it quite a few times with Lulu.
Yep.
Still okay. Like getting a fourth, it's okay. The chronic hallucinations augment is still pretty good. You can just play with any comp. You don't even need to play it with Infinity. You can just put it in for frontline and then fill up your other slots with Ace or Belvev, or I guess you could also play S with Silver just to get free Infinity, but you don't really need Infinity for the Pantheon damage reduction augment because it's just that good. Like any team needs tankiness.
Yep.
So changes were good.
Yeah. Renekton, I think this change was fine. It makes the augment fun. It's still not a high quality augment. You're still probably not playing Renekton carry at high elo, but it is still a fun augment, and it can make for some fun reactions, especially with Laser Core and some brawlers. So good change, but again, not S tier, which is fine.
I think the way you play this augment, this Reign of Anger augment, you don't go for Renekton free. Just use Renekton as an item holder and just for tempo, just push levels.
Yeah, that makes
Because
sense.
in the late game, if you get to the point where you get 5 or even 6 laser with an augment, with an emblem, then you can still win even out the augment here with Reign of Anger, just for the early tempo, because its laser is insane, this augment is insane early. So yeah, I think this is how I seen like 1 or 2 players approach this augment.
Makes
This
sense.
is probably the better way to play it.
Makes sense. Wukong, Cyclone. So this augment needed a buff. I don't think it moved the needle much. I don't think people have really figured out how to go back to this. I think also in particular he struggles with the Kaisa meta. You also can't hacker in Wukong like you could before. So it was a good buff, but it wasn't enough, and we'll have to see if anyone figures out a Wukong build in the meantime.
I like the buff. The times I've seen Wukong work was when you hit him level 3 early, obviously, and then just go for like 6 defenders. Like don't go for super stuff like this. But this requires the lobby to not be fully magical damage, obviously.
Yep.
So if there was some Samira players, some Belvev players, then you got Wukong free early, and you could fit in like 4 to 6 defenders, then it definitely did some work. I think like this DWH guy from NA ladder, I think the Chinese account, played it like once or twice. He did really well with it. So it's definitely doable, but like the whole lobby cannot be magic. Definitely needs to be some physical players. So
Yep. Ezreal, we fixed a bug. These are always good. We should fix bugs. Easy. Yep.
But I feel like if you play Rising Spellforce Ezreal, I don't think you need Parallel. I think it makes him worse. I've played it myself like quite a few times and seen it quite a few times. I think Parallel makes him worse. Rather put in like 3 or 4 quick draw instead of 2 Parallel. I mean, because Ezreal 1 is also really not too good, like pretty bad.
I could see that. I think a big part of it is like how quickly do you need to kill the backline, right? If you're up against a Kaisa, I think the Parallel can be good, but if you really need to tear through the front line, then I agree. So
I think if you get Rising Spellforce, then the front end's no big issue.
Yeah, I could see that.
You usually build like Blue of Gunblade and stuff. Maybe I need to test it out more, but I'm pretty sure you Parallel makes him worse for the Rising Spellforce Ezreal. I mean, for the Ultimate Ezreal, Parallel is fine.
Makes sense.
Because like when Tier 2 Ezreal only functions as attack speed slow, I mean, that's pretty good against Kaiser. So
Right. And the attack speed slow is quite good. So yep. Lee Sen Cleansing Safeguard. I think this was a fine buff. Clearly not enough. The augment can work. It's pretty narrow right now, which is the case for a lot of hero augments. But I think we're being careful to not end up back in the Cleansing Safeguard meta. So I think it is correct to go very slow with these buffs. So I'm happy with this.
yeah, I agree with it. Stats wise, it's it's really bad.
Yep.
But in practice, like in game, if you have an opener for 10 attempts, then it definitely works. You can still get a first or like a second sometimes.
Yep. LeBlanc, we raised it all the way to 99%. I think the big part of this is always going to be that the clone doesn't benefit from traits, can't put items on it. It ends up just being a meat shield, and that's usually not worth a hero augment slot. So I think this augment, we can't really buff it much more, but I think we'll go down as one of those like not really great augments ever, and we've got some learnings to take away from this augment. But overall, I'm glad I did this buff, but it still doesn't move the needle.
Yeah, I don't think it changed anything. I don't think I've seen anyone pick this up.
Yep.
Anymore.
Yep. Rammus, extra 5 armor. Yeah, no problem. Didn't break anything. And again, in a Kaisa MF meta, Rammus having extra armor isn't going to change a whole lot. So,
yeah, just okay.
Yep. Shen Recursion Matrix. Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I've seen like this Brazilian Ramos mascot comp.
Mm-hmm.
I've seen it quite a few times. It actually seems to be okay.
Yeah.
It's with the mascot Ramos, but you could also play still play Method and Elster, but it's definitely okay.
Yep.
Mascot Ramos.
Yeah, it's a good comp. The Shen one, Recursion Matrix. I am glad we did this nerf. I think if we hadn't done this nerf, Gnar might even be better. I know that you wouldn't play this normally in the Sona version of Gnar, but even in the hacker version, this might make Gnar a little too good. So I am glad we did this nerf.
Yeah, Shen is still okay. Okay, fine augment.
Yep.
Shen support one.
Yep. Vayne, glad we did this nerf. Spread shot was just a little too good. It allowed us to put some power back in Vayne as necessary. But overall, spread shot is still a good augment. It's still a good build that can work. So pretty happy with this.
Yeah, I also think that spread shot's still pretty good, especially in Duelist.
Yep.
But I've also seen it a few times in Anime Squad. Which is better? Do you know? Like Duelist is definitely good, but I'm not sure if it's good in Anima Squad.
I think if you can get the way I look at it is if you can get the Riven 3, then Anima is a lot better. If you can't get the Riven 3 and you're able to get like 2 lockets, then the Duelist is better.
Okay.
So
yeah, usually just default to the Duelist, and it definitely works most of the time. But
yeah, it can definitely work either way. So. Vex augment. I think this augment was a fine buff. It's an okay augment now. Not one of the S tier picks by any means, but it's a healthy choice. Vex, if you high roll Vex, can do really well even in this meta, but you do have to high roll and hit the Vex 3 pretty early.
Oh, I've seen like a lot of Vex in EUS, and I think it's still pretty good. It's definitely not one of the preferred augments. Like you usually prefer both method augments. Aatrox support is insanely broken. The Vex support one is still fine. You need blue buff for it. And not sure if you read this Vex guide by Silas.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sure if you've seen it. If you play it like him, then it's still really, really good. You can easily get first or second if you get an okay opener.
Yep. Cool. The Echo augment. So I've played a lot of this augment. It's very narrow and requires a very specific setup. But we have seen some people have success with it, which I think is exactly where it's supposed to be. So I'm glad I made this change. It's a fine change. And again, this is the kind of augment that's never going to be S tier, because if it is S tier, you're going to run into an unkillable Echo. It's also really funny that people still haven't figured out this augment changed in the mid set. I've seen people try to put MR on it. It doesn't scale off an MR anymore. It scales off just damage. But it can be an augment that works in the right thing. So I'm glad I made this change.
Yeah, I can't say much to this, to be honest. I've never played this. I've never seen this before, to be honest. So I have like zero intel on this. But Echo is one of the strongest tanks.
Yep.
So I imagine he's okay. Like the thing is, I think you change at one point. You change melee pranksters to jump into the backline, right?
Yep.
Okay. I guess if you play pranksters, then this might be fine. When you jump into the backline and you see all of them in the backline. I mean, the attack speed slow is insane.
Yep. And then finally, Leona and Urgot both got small buffs. These were okay. They didn't break the game. They made these augments a little bit better. So again, directionally correct.
Yeah, I don't feel a big difference.
Yep.
I still prefer the other Leon augment and Urgot augment. I usually don't pick it up.
Yep. And then finally, scoped weapons got a small buff. Again, very minor buff. Didn't break the game. Fun for things like Jax, and Warwick, but pretty good.
Yeah, Jax playable with Warwick. Yeah,
Yep.
What Jax is still playable, but I feel like Jax is just a worse version of Warwick.
Yeah, I think unless you get like a really high roll admin and hit it early and the Jax 3, then it can do well. But otherwise, I agree, Warwick's easier to play.
Yeah, you need like Jax free and Riven free.
Yep.
And when you outscale the war comp, but usually if you just play the normal war comp and you get the 4 or 5 lasers, then you have a much better late game. Yeah.
Yep. Cool.
But it was okay buffer.
Cool. And then small changes. We made the ace change to deal with Oxforce. We helped Kale a little bit. Both of these didn't change too much. Nothing crazy. That's why they're in small. So, yeah. And then bug fixes. And yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I like the patch in total, except besides like Kaiser and Yasuo and the other stuff we talked about at the beginning. Otherwise, in total, like patches, I feel like the patch is going to the right direction, most certainly.
Yeah,
especially right before the finals in EU, NA, and the World's finals, obviously.
Yeah, I feel like with the changes coming next patch and how close we are right now, it feels like we're very close. That we'll finally be in, like, again, we reach the end of the set, we get to a final, like, really balanced point. We should see some good regional competitions, some good championship, and, should be in a good spot just in time to get rid of it all for set 9. So, you know how it goes. Yeah. But, again, the thing I feel like here is, like, Kaisa, we did nerf, but not hard enough. That just feels like the big thing here. Maybe MF also needed a slight touch. So, yeah.
Yeah, nothing Kaiser's attack speed is pretty sure that's the right change.
Yep.
Static shift and attack speed is way too good.
Yeah. So cool. Like I said, it was a pretty small patch, and patches are going to keep getting smaller from here as we try to like final it out. So nothing too crazy, and yeah. So cool. Well, Solo, thank you for joining me today. Any final words from you you'd like to say?
Oh yeah, thanks for having me. Thanks for making the greatest game ever. Like. It's a bit hard to get in, like a bit hard to like start.
Oh yeah.
As soon as you get the basics down, like it's pretty much the best game ever.
Cool.
Unless you lose every game, but then you probably don't have the basics down.
Then you just tweet Mort and say, why you killing me?
You got Mortdog, yes.
Yep. So cool.
What did you?
Nice. Amazing. All right, cool. Well, thank you for joining me. Glad you could join us. That's going to do it for this patch post-mortem. We'll be back in 2 weeks. Like I said, there's only 2 more patches because, 13.9, 13.10. Oh, 3 more patches, and then 13.11. So we're getting really close to the end of Monsters Attack. So, yeah. All right. That's going to do it for me. Until next time, take it easy.